All right. Ser jag ifall folk joinar eller?
It's up and running.
It's up and running? All right. Yeah, 76 people, 78 already. Maybe we can wait 1 or 2 minutes to let everyone join first. So if you want to, go ahead and write in the chat where all of you are based. I'm based at our headquarters in Stockholm, in Södermalm. Do we have some other people from Stockholm here, or maybe from other parts of the world? Just go ahead and write in the chat where you guys are based. But yeah, let's hold on maybe 1 more minute and before we kickstart this webinar. I can't see if anyone wrote in the chat. Oh, okay, now I can see. Wow. Yeah, so from all over the world, both Europe and Americas, and yeah, a bunch of different places here. So nice to see that so many of you could join for this webinar. And yeah, I don't know if you are already aware, which I guess you are, but we're going to talk about how to utilize Teamtailor when it comes to attracting or reaching and attracting more candidates, basically. And I don't know, now it's 2 minutes past. Maybe hold on. I can see that people are still kind of joining here. So maybe just hold on for 1 more minute. Malta, nice. So we got a lot of people from all over the world, but yeah, today's best practice tips will be very general. So I think this will be useful for you no matter where in the world you are based. But yeah, let's maybe go ahead and kickstart this. I'll share my presentation with you guys. All right, just gotta find how to share the screen here. I'll just go ahead and share my entire screen, but maybe you can. Yeah, okay, so welcome to this webinar about how to utilize Teamtailor when it comes to reaching out to and attracting more candidates, basically. And some of you might already know that we have a dedicated team here at Teamtailor called the Promote team. And, you know, we can always consult you when it comes to where to reach the candidates, etc. So if you have any questions after this webinar, you are more than welcome to reach out to us. But since we only have 30 minutes today, I'm going to try to keep it very basic. So I will not dive very deep into each and every aspect, but instead I will just try to share as many, you know, best practice tips as possible that I think you should all know about in order to get the most out of Teamtailor, basically. And yeah, before I start, I can tell you a little bit about my background. But basically, I started at Teamtailor 2017. And this is my second time at Teamtailor because I left and then I came back a little bit more than a year ago. Yeah, that's just a little bit short about me. But this is today's agenda, and we're going to talk about how to use Teamtailor when it comes to attracting more passive candidates, mainly using social media advertisement. And I'll talk about how our process looks like when you advertise on social media through Teamtailor. I'll touch on different, features that I think can be very useful when it comes to attracting passive candidates. And then at the end, I will also show you a little bit about the analytics part and, how you can kind of read into the numbers to get some insights into maybe where you need to advertise more or maybe advertise less, etc. But jumping right into it, sorry if I'm jumping here, but I will jump to this demo account instead, and I will try to show you this from the app instead, because I think it's easier for you guys to follow if I do. And, first of all, when it comes to reaching passive, or no matter if it's active or passive candidates, we have a bunch of different, integrations with different job boards, as you might know. Just to make everything a little bit easier to understand, I usually divide these different job boards into 3 different categories. So the first one is, if we go to the marketplace up here, and then scroll down, on the left-hand side, we have something called always included job boards. If any of these job boards is activated, such as in this case, Google Jobs and Indeed is here, for example, it means that every time you post a new job on your career site in Teamtailor, that job will then automatically get posted on all the different job boards that you have activated here. And a very common question I get is, which ones do you think is the most important ones? And I think the 4 most common ones are, Google Jobs, Indeed plus Glassdoor, Ubel, and then also LinkedIn Basic Jobs, which is the free version of LinkedIn. And these job ads, they will appear and become searchable on LinkedIn, and they will also appear under the Jobs tab on your company profile on LinkedIn. However, they will not appear in anyone's newsfeed, right? So that's the main difference between the free version and the paid version on LinkedIn. But as I said, if a job board here is activated, it means that every time you post a new job, it will automatically get posted on all the job boards that you have activated here. So it's either opt in or opt out. And I think most of the time you will not spend a lot of time in this view. Instead, I think most of the time you will spend inside this view. And now I went to my fake job here. And if I click on promote, you can then see that under the ongoing promotion, all of these always included job boards appear again. And then you could, if you wanted to, for some reason, unpublish them manually if you want to. So that's the first category of job boards that we have integrated into Teamtailor, the always included and automated job boards. If we scroll down here, we then have a bunch of other job boards as well. So the second category is all the traditional job boards, such as Indeed, for example. So if you want to sponsor your jobs on, let's say, Indeed in this case, we have integrations to a bunch of different job boards, such as Indeed, which allows you to sponsor your jobs on Indeed without having to leave Teamtailor. But you need to have an account with Indeed in this case, and they are the ones who handle all the invoicing and all of that. So you're not purchasing anything from us per se. All this integration does is it enables you to sponsor your jobs on, let's say, Indeed, for example, without having to leave Teamtailor. And all the applications will, of course, go straight into Teamtailor, and you will also get, some very useful data in the analytics so that you can track all the candidates, right? So that's the second category. The third one, and maybe the most relevant one when it comes to reaching passive candidates, are, of course, all the social media channels, and I include LinkedIn here, even though they aren't a social media per se. But I think one of the main differences between the social media channels that we have integrated in Teamtailor and the traditional job boards is that instead of sending the ads or publishing them through a feed automatically, since it is targeted advertisement on both LinkedIn, but also, Facebook and Instagram, for example, and Google Ads as well. It means that we actually set up these campaigns manually. So if we take Facebook and Instagram here as an example, after you have chosen the budget you want to go with, and I will get a little bit deeper into that a little bit later. But what happens after you click on purchase is that one of our campaign managers will actually read through the job description manually in order to understand which audience it is that you want to reach out to. So anything that is already apparent from the job ad, you don't really have to write again here. But if there is anything that isn't apparent from the job ad that you want us to keep in mind when it comes to the targeting, then it would be a very good idea to write it for our campaign managers here in this empty box. And yeah, when it comes to these channels, I think the most common ones by far is either LinkedIn or Facebook and Instagram, a little bit depending on what type of roles it is. I think LinkedIn is generally very strong when it comes to white collar positions, but maybe not as strong when it comes to blue collar positions. And I also think that which one you should choose also depends a little bit depending on what the purpose of the ads are. But yeah, I can dive a little bit deeper into that in a moment. But first, I just want to explain the different benefits that you have with, let's start with LinkedIn, because with LinkedIn, we have a unique partnership. So when it comes to LinkedIn or paid advertisement on LinkedIn, the most common option, which I think a lot of you might have heard about, is something called job slots. That's the most common option when it comes to paid advertisement on LinkedIn. And that's what LinkedIn is selling if you go straight to LinkedIn, right? The only downside with job slots is that it requires you to have an annual contract with LinkedIn. And what we are offering here, called premium jobs, it's essentially the same thing as a job slot. The only difference is that you only pay per job ad on demand instead. So a very common question that I get is, which one out of these two options is the most cost effective? And the answer to that question is, it depends on the volume you have, right? Like if you have a very high volume, then it's probably going to be more cost effective for you to have an annual contract with LinkedIn in order to get access to these job slots. But if you don't have such a high volume, then it's probably more cost effective for you to pay per ad instead. And also, I think just knowing that you have this option, because this is actually a unique partnership offering. So the only reason why we have the possibility to offer you this this deal or this kind of product is because we are a unique LinkedIn partner, and this is their partner offering. But yeah, I think just knowing that you have this option is very useful if you go to the negotiation table with LinkedIn, for example. So that's the first thing that I want to mention about LinkedIn. But if you look at all these different channels here, LinkedIn is actually the only channel where you pay like a fixed price per ad or per job ad. With Facebook and Instagram or any other social media channel, instead of paying a fixed price per ad, you instead pay per views or per clicks, which you might already be aware of. But this means that you basically have the possibility of going with any budget of your liking. You can also choose a custom budget if any of these options aren't to your liking. But I mean, of course, I wouldn't recommend going with a budget smaller than our small package unless you plan to go a shorter period of time as well. because otherwise the daily budget becomes very low, which of course, affects the frequency, etc. So I wouldn't really recommend a package smaller or a budget smaller than the small package here, unless you plan to go a shorter period of time as well. But we could of course adjust or customize the budget as well as the campaign length, right? So anything you want to adjust, you can just go ahead and write about it here, so that the information reaches our campaign managers before they set up the campaign. But yeah, since we don't publish these ads, this regardless of whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook, we don't publish these ads automatically, but instead we set them up manually, which means that there is a lead time of 24 hours. So within 24 hours after clicking here, you will receive an email with us or from us with a link or a preview link to the job ad, so that you can see how the ad looks like. And if you want to make any changes, you can just reply to that email. But yeah, you will be able to see how the ad looks like before it goes live, except on LinkedIn. Again, LinkedIn is the only exception where instead of sending a preview link, the ad is already live when we send you the link. But of course, and this is true for Facebook and Instagram too, even if it is live, we can, of course, make adjustments even after the campaign has gone live. So that's not really a problem. And I guess another common question I get, especially when it comes to Facebook and Instagram, is do we have to think anything about the ad material? And the answer to that is no. We create ad material from the landing page in the job ad. So we will create ad material both for the still image placements, but also for reels, etc. So you don't really have to think about the ad material. But if you do have a specific video or something that you want to use, you can of course send it to us, and then we will use that ad material instead. And lastly, when it comes to the sender of the ad, it's not really necessary that you have a Facebook profile, because we have a profile called Team Tailored Jobs that we can put as the poster of the ads instead. But of course, I would recommend you to use your own Facebook page so that you also get some branding. Because one thing that I think is worth pointing out when it comes to the comparison between LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram is that LinkedIn usually has a higher conversion rate than Facebook and Instagram. But what Facebook and Instagram has that LinkedIn doesn't is that they have a much bigger total reach than LinkedIn. So when it comes to building awareness or employer brand, for example, then I think reach is more important than reaching a very specific target audience. But one thing that I usually hear from a lot of clients is, this saying that, yeah, but people don't really go to Facebook and Instagram to look for jobs, which is true, I think. So one thing that I usually recommend is if we click here on the career site, this is where you, of course, find your career site and all of these under pages, etc. But one very useful feature we have here is something called campaign pages. And for those of you who aren't aware of what this is, let me go ahead and show you quickly what you can do with these campaign pages. So the main purpose of the campaign pages, or I think there are two main benefits when it comes to these campaign pages. The first one is that you can go out with a different type of message other than the traditional recruitment message where you go, hey, we're looking for XYZ. Instead, you can go out with a different type of message, basically. So in this example here, for example, they have written about, basically the soft values or the perks and benefits that a lot of people write in their job ads. And I mean, of course, you can be very creative with the job ads in Team Tailor, and you can, write about all the different perks and benefits about why people should work at your company. But at the end of the day, when you push those ads out, I think the message will still be something along the lines like, hey, we're looking for XYZ. So in this example here, instead of writing about it in the job ad, they have made this the main message, where if you care about working outside, for example, then this company might be interesting to you. So something other than a job ad, basically. And here is another example of this, where they have used a testimonial. And just to be clear, these are not real example, but these are mock-ups that we have created because we couldn't use live example for this webinar. But a lot of our other clients use these campaign pages for these purposes. And yeah, as you can see here, it can be as easy as a testimonial. And usually you do have a couple of ambassadors at the company. Here is another example, and we actually have another client who they were based in the UK, but they offered relocation to Vietnam. And I mean, you can imagine if they went, hey, we're looking for XYZ to Vietnam. I think very few people would actually click on that job ad, right? But instead they went, hey, are you interested in relocating to Vietnam? This is, the perspective of a British expat or something like that. And I think that's a great way to attract the interest, especially from passive candidates, right? Because again, the reason why I brought up like a testimonial, for example, is, because this, regardless of whether I'm interested in switching jobs or not, that type of content should be relevant to me. Again, this regardless of whether I'm looking for a job or not, right? But then, of course, at the end of these pages, you can link to different positions. And you can also utilize these campaign pages to post, multiple positions in one and the same ad, instead of advertising them separately, one and one, which then potentially could save you a lot of ad spend. And yeah, in this example here, you can see that they have different locations that they want to attract talent to. We had another healthcare company actually who were looking for nurses. And I think, the profile was very similar, but it was just a little bit different locations, etc. And, instead of going out with 10 different ads, we recommended them to make a page like this, basically, where they linked to those 10 different positions. But that meant that they could go out with one campaign instead of 10 different, which meant that they could more than half the budget that they were going to spend, right? And yeah, let me just go back here quickly because I want to show you how easy it is. Again, I clicked on the career site and I clicked on the plus sign, and what I showed you now are all standard pages, right? So this is where you click if you want to create a campaign page. It doesn't cost anything. It's completely free. You can create as many as you want. And yeah, it's not really connected to your career site per se. I mean, of course, you can connect it to or from your career site, but it's not connected to your career site per default, which means that you can really play around with this without having to worry that it might appear somewhere that it shouldn't. And yeah, then you build these pages the same way you do with the career page. So it means that you build it with this, block system. So it should be fairly easy for you to create these kind of content by yourselves without having to be, an UX designer or a marketing person or something like that. And again, it's completely free. However, if you feel like you really need some help or really would appreciate some help with creating the content, we have a bunch of different packages here. So I know it can be a little bit blurry here, so maybe it's hard to read, but I can quickly explain what these packages are about. So the first one is if you have already, images or videos and you just want someone to help you edit the stuff into a nice campaign page, for example, then it's this polish and post package. The second package means that we will send you a 4-step guide on how you can create the content yourselves with, your cell phones or whatever. So basically create the raw material that we can then edit into a nice campaign page or ad material or whatever for a very reasonable price, because usually, these days it is fairly easy to create ad material and stuff like that, and it doesn't really have to cost a lot of money. But again, it's very easy to create these yourselves. So this is only if you absolutely feel like you need the assistance. The last part is about the analytics part. And I can see that we are kind of running out of time here, so I will try to wrap this up. But one last tip that I have is, if we go to the analytics part, usually if you feel like you don't get enough applications, it's usually because of one of two reasons. Now I just chose my random fake job here, and then I clicked on analytics. And if we scroll down a little bit here, on the left hand side, and let me just go ahead and adjust the dates maybe, but on the right hand side here, if it's just gonna let it load. Here you can see the amount of visits that this specific job ad has received. So again, if you feel like you don't get enough applications, then it's usually because of one of two reasons. Either it's because you don't have enough traffic on the landing page at all. This is a fake job, but 11 visits is not a lot. So in this case, it could be the traffic, and maybe I need to spread this ad more in order to increase the number of visits on this landing page. But it could also be that you do have enough traffic on the landing page, but that the drop-off rate is too high. So here on the left-hand side, you can see, how many people have landed on the job ad in Teamtailor, how many out of those have clicked on apply, and how many out of those have fulfilled an application. So in my case, it's 0, but this is a fake job. But if you do feel like you have a too high drop-off rate, especially from this step to this step maybe, what I usually recommend is that you try to lower the threshold a little bit in the job ad. So if we go to my job ad now, I will just show you quickly. If I scroll down here, you can see that in my case, now maybe it's a little bit difficult to see here, but you can see that the CV part is actually mandatory here. And I usually recommend that you make the CV either optional or turn it off completely, and instead do maybe not what I have done here. I added a video question, and I think that could also create a drop-off rate, but instead add questions so that you still get the information that you are looking for in a CV. And what you can also do is, if we go back to this position and click on the application step, so this is where all the candidates land in Teamtailor. And if I go ahead and click on this little magical wand here, you can see that I can go ahead and then add a trigger. And a trigger is just a collective name for that. Something is supposed to happen automatically as soon as a candidate lands in one of these steps. So what I could do here, for example, which I have already done, is I can add a smart move, for example, based on what the candidates have answered in the application form. So I kind of automate the screening process a little bit, and this could be useful for you even if you have the opposite problem where maybe you feel like you're getting too many applications, right? And then this smart move feature here could help you automate the screening process a little bit. What you could also do then is, in this case, let's say it is a relevant candidate. In this case, maybe they have many years experience of dog sitting, for example. And they should automatically then move on to the next step here. What I could also do then is I could add another trigger here to send a message where I go something along the lines like, hey, thank you for your application. Please complete it with a CV. So my point is that you can always ask for a CV in a later stage of the process, instead of having it mandatory in the very first step. And one of the reasons I bring this up at all is if we go to the analytics part for the whole career site, not for a specific job, here you can, for example, see how much traffic is coming from mobile devices versus desktop. And in my case, it's fairly little because this is a demo account. But if you look at how the landscape looks like, it's usually closer to 50-50. And with that said, I think very few candidates actually have access to a CV in their cell phone. And also, if you are looking for passive candidates, I think it doesn't really matter if they come from mobile devices or desktop. Most likely, they won't have an updated CV ready anyways. So again, to lower the threshold, maybe you can make the CV optional. Of course, it doesn't have to be set in stone and don't have to be a standard for all of your positions. But if you feel like you're not getting enough applications, take a look inside analytics and then, see, is it the traffic? Is it that we don't get enough traffic? Or is it that the drop-off rate is just way too high? So that's kind of my last tip when it comes to the analytics part, how you can lower the threshold, how you can automate the screening process a little bit, and how you can, ask for a CV in a later stage instead. And like I said in the beginning of this webinar, we actually do have a dedicated team who can always, consult you when it comes to strategy, etc. So if you have any questions regarding the features that I just spoke about, like the campaign pages and stuff like that, I didn't really go in too deep into it. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. And also, I think this chat here, if you write questions in the chat, we will save the questions for later and we will reach out to you. So go ahead and just write in the chat if you have any questions or if there is anything that you would want to know more about. And of course, you are more than welcome to schedule a meeting with us if you want to have a one-to-one with someone. But that's basically it for today. I hope, at least you got some inspiration. Let me go back here and maybe I can stop sharing my screen now. But yeah, like I said, if you have any questions, go ahead and write in the chat. We will save all the questions for later. So even if this webinar closes down, you can still go ahead and write all the questions in the chat, and then we will reach out to us after this. But other than that, thank you so much for tuning in. And yeah, like I said, hopefully you got some inspiration at least. Anyone have any questions straight off the bat, or? All right, we will take a look at the chat later anyways, but take care, you guys, and talk to you later.